Welcome to a journey through time, as we explore the life and political career of Ferdinand Marcos. Born on September 11, 1917, in the northern province of Ilocos Norte, Philippines, Marcos's life was as layered as the history of the nation he would come to lead. Even in his early years, Marcos displayed a sharp intellect and a fierce ambition. Excelling academically, he graduated from the University of the Philippines College of Law. But it wasn't just his intellectual prowess that was noteworthy. Marcos was also a skilled debater, winning the National Collegiate Oratorical Contest. This combination of intelligence and charisma would serve him well in his future political career. But before politics came a brief stint in the military during World War II, where Marcos claimed to be a decorated war hero, a point of contention that would follow him throughout his life. After the war, Marcos turned his sights towards politics. His political journey began in 1949 when he was elected as a congressman representing the 2nd District of Ilocos Norte. Marcos quickly made a name for himself in the Philippine House of Representatives, where he served for 3 terms. His political star continued to rise as he transitioned to the Senate in 1959. As a senator, Marcos's influence grew, and his ambitions soared even higher. In 1965, Ferdinand Marcos reached the pinnacle of his political ascent. He was elected as the 10th president of the Philippines, becoming the first person in Philippine history to hold the presidency for 2 terms. His rise to power was a testament to his shrewd political maneuvering, his charisma, and his knack for connecting with the masses. But as we'll see, the presidency was not just a peak, but also a precipice. Marcos's rise to power was nothing short of extraordinary, but it was his time as president that would define his legacy. In 1965, Ferdinand Marcos took the oath as the 10th president of the Philippines, promising a new society. Marcos, a charismatic and eloquent speaker, captivated the nation with his visions of progress, prosperity, and peace. He pledged to transform the Philippines into a beacon of hope and success in Southeast Asia. In the early years of his presidency, Marcos initiated key policies and ambitious projects. His administration embarked on an extensive infrastructure development program, building roads, bridges, hospitals, schools, and other public facilities. These projects were not just about physical structures, they were symbols of modernization and a testament to the nation's potential. In addition, Marcos prioritized agrarian reform, an issue that had long plagued the Philippines. He implemented laws that aimed to redistribute land and provide better opportunities for farmers. It was a bold move, one that sought to address the deep-seated inequalities in the rural areas. But beneath the veneer of progress, cracks were beginning to show. Critics pointed out that these projects often benefited Marcos's allies and were funded by questionable means. There were murmurs of kickbacks, embezzlement, and misuse of public funds. Further, Marcos began to consolidate power. He curtailed the press, suppressed dissent, and manipulated the judiciary. He was no longer just a president, he was slowly becoming an authoritarian ruler. These were the early signs of a regime that would later plunge the country into one of the darkest periods of its history. Marcos's presidency, particularly his first term, was a paradox. On one hand, there were tangible achievements, a semblance of progress. On the other hand, there were growing concerns about corruption and authoritarianism. It was a complex and controversial period, a prelude to the tumultuous years that would follow. As his first term came to an end, the country was on the brink of a significant shift. The new society Marcos had promised was taking shape, but not in the way many had hoped or expected. 1972 marked a turning point in Philippine history, as Marcos declared martial law. The seeds of this drastic decision were sown in the midst of social unrest, a growing communist insurgency, and an alleged assassination attempt on a top government official. These were the reasons Marcos cited when he shocked the nation on September 23, 1972, by announcing martial law. But let's unpack this a bit. What did martial law actually mean for the Philippines? In essence, it meant the suspension of civil rights and liberties and the imposition of military rule. The Constitution was replaced with a new one, granting Marcos the power to rule by decree. This period was marked by severe human rights abuses. Thousands of dissidents were arrested, tortured, or killed. The media was heavily censored, and Marcos's political opponents were systematically silenced. The country was held in a vice-like grip of fear and repression. Yet it wasn't just the suppression of dissent that marked this era. Corruption became rampant. Marcos and his inner circle, including his wife Imelda, were accused of plundering billions of dollars from the country's coffers. The economy plummeted, and the gap between the rich and the poor widened dramatically. However, despite the iron fist rule, the spirit of the Filipino people remained unbroken. Underground movements and resistance groups emerged, defying the regime's oppressive tactics. Protest songs were sung in hushed whispers, and clandestine publications circulated, keeping the flame of freedom alive. The widespread human rights abuses, the stifling of free speech, and the institutionalized corruption led to widespread discontent. The nation was under Marcos's grip, but the will of the people started to rise. The seeds of resistance were sown, setting the stage for the eventual downfall of the Marcos regime. And as we'll see in the next scene, the people's power would ultimately prevail, proving that no regime, no matter how oppressive, can suppress the collective will of the people. The year 1986 saw the culmination of years of resistance against Marcos's regime. After a tumultuous 21-year rule marked by corruption, human rights abuses, and a choking grip on civil liberties, the Filipino people had had enough. The stage was set for what would come to be known as the People Power Revolution. This revolution wasn't one of violence and bloodshed. No, this was a revolution of unity, peace, and an unyielding thirst for democracy. The People Power Revolution was the collective cry of a nation that had suffered for far too long under the iron fist of Marcos's martial law. At the center of this movement was Corazon Aquino, the widow of the assassinated opposition leader, Benigno Aquino Jr. She was a beacon of hope for the Filipino people, a symbol of resistance against Marcos's regime. She led the call for a snap election in 1986, challenging Marcos's hold on power. The election was marred by widespread allegations of vote rigging and electoral fraud. Despite Marcos being declared the winner, the people knew the truth. Millions took to the streets in a peaceful protest that lasted for 4 days. They formed human barricades, shielding the military defectors from the troops still loyal to Marcos. In the face of such overwhelming show of unity and defiance, Marcos's grip on power began to slip. The pressure was mounting both domestically and internationally. Eventually he was forced to flee the country, marking the end of his rule. Corazon Aquino was inaugurated as the first female president of the Philippines. She was the embodiment of the people's fight for democracy, a testament to their refusal to be silenced or oppressed any longer. Marcos's reign ended, but the legacy of his rule would continue to shape the Philippines. The struggle against his dictatorship, the courage of the Filipino people, and their triumphant return to democracy remain etched in the annals of the nation's history. Ferdinand Marcos left a lasting impact on the Philippines, for better or for worse. His rule was a critical juncture in the country's history, and its effects continue to reverberate today. The legacy of Marcos is a subject of intense debate and controversy, a testament to the polarizing nature of his administration. Some remember him as a strong leader who sought to modernize the Philippines, while others view him as a dictator who suppressed civil liberties and oversaw widespread corruption. One of the most contentious points is Marcos's burial. Despite protests and legal battles, his remains were interred at the Heroes Cemetery in 2016, sparking nationwide protests and rekindling old tensions. Critics argued that a leader accused of gross human rights violations and massive corruption had no place in a cemetery meant for heroes. Supporters, on the other hand, believed that his contributions to the country warranted this honor. Equally controversial is the wealth amassed by the Marcos family. The government has been trying to recover the ill-gotten wealth for decades, a complex and protracted process that has yielded only a fraction of the estimated billions of dollars. The question of where the money came from and where it went remains a subject of intrigue and speculation. Perhaps the most enduring part of Marcos's legacy is the continued political influence of his family. His wife Imelda and their children have held significant political positions, demonstrating the persistence of the Marcos name in Philippine politics. This has led to a renewed interest in the Marcos era, revealing deep-seated divisions within the country. The story of Ferdinand Marcos is a stark reminder of the complexities of power, corruption, and resistance. His legacy, still being contested and reinterpreted, offers a window into the tumultuous history of the Philippines, a nation that continues to grapple with the realities of its past as it charts its future.